program lined up for you today. For those of you who don't know what Sustainable Seas Trust is, who we are, what we're about, we are a non-profit organization based in today bitterly cold but beautiful city of Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape, South Africa. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us for the very first time. This is a masterclass that will be happening every month until December. It's just a discussion and conversation that we'd like to have with the general public about diving deeper into what it means to be living in a zero waste lifestyle. I mean, it's from the previous masterclass that we had, we learned quite a few things. I personally learned so much, and we want to continue this conversation with the general public. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very warm welcome to you. For those of you who joined our first masterclass, welcome back. It's so amazing to see you and to have you guys joining us again. So while we're getting into the intros, just quickly WhatsApp your friends, let them know that we are having a live masterclass, let them join on board. Make sure you've got a notebook to get some notes down through this masterclass and note down any questions, and also just grab yourself a cup of coffee. Feel comfortable and relaxed. This is a conversation that we would love to have with you, and we will continue having with you until December. So without further ado, I would like to welcome on one. Lauren, welcome. Hey, girl.
Hey, Lex, how's it going? Yes.
Very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's super cold today, right?
No, it's freezing. But I hope that you're keeping warm. I'm in the office. I'm like, coming in line from the Sustainable Seas Trust studio.
I can see so, and you're looking absolutely stunning, friend.
Thank you, too.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for today's lineup. I totally can agree with you. I was so inspired by the last session. I must be honest, I think I went back and watched it 1 or 2 times just because there was so much information, and it's amazing that the amount of what we can do with what we have. So I just want to encourage, for those who didn't watch the last one, please do go back and check on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and there is a link to watch the last event, just to bring you up to speed. And yeah, I'm super excited for today's discussion, and we have a phenomenal speaker lined up. And she's going to be sharing some great insights into what she's doing at home and sharing some practical tips and just sort of help us on this journey towards achieving zero waste.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm with you. I have a random question for you, because the last conversation that we had with Dr. Tomi Rubink was like pretty intense. I want to know, is there anything that you have changed or adapted into your life since the last discussion that we had?
That's such a great question, Lex. I think I was definitely inspired to do a lot more. So I think I have sort of been catching water. I've been a little bit more religious about doing that. So I actually went out and got some big buckets to put in the shower. And where I rinse sort of the water and things like that, the dishwater. And so I still got sort of a manual system where I take everything out, but it's good exercise, so I'm not complaining, keeps the body moving. And then I think one other thing, and it's maybe not something that he touched on, but I'm very proud of myself in the sense that I didn't go on a major shopping spree this winter, which I usually do because I do like clothes and fashion. So I've been trying very hard to be selective about the type of products that I buy personally, and specifically in terms of clothing and things like that, and to go without if I don't need it, so really sort of looking into my closet, what I have in my closet, what can I do with it. So it's maybe not something that we touched on last time, but I think that's definitely something new that I've incorporated in the last month.
Yeah, no, but I hear you. And I think what you're touching on now actually like feeds into the whole essence of a zero waste lifestyle, which I think our guest will be touching on just now, because what does it really mean? And there's so many different avenues. I think when people think zero waste, they automatically just think about like litter, and, just other different types of packaging, but it's like a all-inclusive way of living. But before we dive deep into our guest speaker for today, I'd just like to welcome everyone who is joining us for the first time, or if you have joined us before, welcome back to our second masterclass series. Please do let us know where you are from. Let us know what little town or dorpy you stay in. Give us a quick shout out. We'd love to interact with you and find out what you're doing, where you're coming from, what you do. We definitely want to engage more with our online community. And please feel free to talk to us and ask questions and give a little comment on the presentation within our chat group. So just pop a comment through, we see it live, and we will definitely be able to interact with you and answer your questions after our guest presentation. But Lauren, I am super excited about today's presentation. Can you just give us a little snippet about who our guest speaker is today?
Yes, fantastic. So today's speaker is Mrs. Stacey Webb. She's the Executive Director of Sustainable Seas Trust. Stacey grew up on a farm, and her family's love for nature and conservation has inspired her in terms of a career and, the choice of a career path. She's this animal scientist by trade, so I'm absolutely loving this. We have a scientist in the house, a female scientist in the month. Yes. So we got some girl power going on here. And so, yeah, and I mean, besides the fact that she's a trained scientist, she's a full-time mom. She's got 2 kids, and she still manages to sort of promote or live a zero waste lifestyle. So I'm very, very curious because how she manages to sort of juggle and cope all of these things, because I think a lot of the time we think it's this additional add-on thing. Now I need to live zero waste. I mean, I'm already trying to live healthy, now it's another step. So, but without further ado, a warm welcome to Stacey Webb.
Yes, welcome, Stacey.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for the introduction. I'm very excited to be talking to you guys today, and excited to share what we do at home to minimize our waste.
Yeah.
So should
we are definitely. You can. I was just about to say that we're very excited to have you speaking to us today, just to touch on what Lauren said. I think for like a lot of people at SST, you'll be seen like as a role model because you're a scientist, you're an executive director, you're a mom, you're a nature lover. I'm pretty sure you're also like the chef at home. Like there's so many hats that you wear, and you also take on like a zero waste lifestyle. So no pressure, but I'm like here to jot down some tips from your life.
Well, thanks. I'm also just a person, so I have my faults as well. But thank you so much. Sweet.
All right, Stace, we ready?
Great. I'm going to pull up the presentation.
Okay, cool. While Stacey's presentation, please feel free again, guys, to tell us where you're coming from, who you are. I see a few people from Gauteng and Port Alfred popping in, so do let us know where you're coming from, and please feel free to put the comments through as we go through the presentation.
All right. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. It's perfect.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody who's joining us online. As I said, I'm very excited to be sharing some of the tips or some of the changes that we've made at home to try and reduce our waste. And a bit of what Alexi was alluding to in the lead up to the talk is what exactly does zero waste and living more sustainably mean? And this means so many different things to different people, and there's so many different ways that you can reduce your waste. If you've been to the previous masterclass, you'll see we're referring to reducing waste of all resources, not just the waste going to landfill, but also reducing your use of water, electricity, fuel. And the great thing about reducing your use of resources means that you don't only save the environment, but in a lot of cases, you actually also save money. So in the previous masterclass, Dr. Tony Ribbing took us through his great resource saving mechanisms, and he talked about harvesting rainwater and grey water from showers and sinks. He also talked about using your food waste and your other garden clippings in your compost, and as well as saving electricity through solar water heating. And as mentioned, we have this masterclass available on our YouTube channel. So please do go back and have a watch of this if you didn't attend, and listen to the great things that you can change at home with regards to these resources. Okay, so the first thing that I have changed in our lives is that we shop smart. The choices that you make in the grocery store can actually benefit the reduction of waste at home. So I don't know how many of you know about polymer codes. They are basically a code that is on top of packaging that tells you exactly what that packaging is made out of. And by looking at the products that you're buying and by looking at what they're packaged in, you can already determine before you purchase the product whether you're going to be able to recycle that packaging or not. And by knowing your packaging and their value for recycling, you can choose the packaging that you know you're going to be able to separate at home and take to a recycling center. And you as a consumer also can play a very important role in the move towards sustainability by choosing more sustainable and more recyclable types of packaging, because you're essentially voting with your wallet and you're telling producers that you would like more sustainable packaging. So you as a consumer have a very important role to play when you go into a shop, and I would encourage you to become more aware of polymer codes, more aware of what you're buying, and start making small choices when you're purchasing your items that can actually help you to reduce your waste going out of your home. So another thing you can also do is buy your products in larger quantities and then dispense into reusable containers rather than buying individually packaged goods. That will also reduce your waste going to landfill. So this is just an example of how this looks in our home. I don't bake very often. We do have pancake Saturdays every weekend, so I do have to buy some baking ingredients, but I do buy large bags of baking ingredients when I buy so that I reduce the amount of packaging I purchase. And then I dispense into the sealable, reusable containers, and it keeps the ingredients fresh, and it also means that I haven't bought a lot of small, individually packed, smaller quantities of produce. Another example is my kids' lunch boxes. So they love things like dried fruit, cereals, biscuits, and instead of buying the already individually packaged small packets of those items, we buy in bulk, and we have a multitude of different size containers and shapes and colors, and it creates quite an interesting array inside their lunch boxes for them. But then we're able to dispense into the smaller containers, and we actually reduce the amount of wastage that we have coming from our packaging. Okay, my second tip is to eliminate single-use items. There are a lot of single-use items that are around that are really easy to stop using. So we have this fantastic infographic, and we're more than happy to share this with you so that you can remind yourselves about the types of single-use items you can eliminate. But in our house, we've managed to eliminate single-use water bottles, single-use coffee cups, single-use cutlery. You can't really see it in the photograph, but there's a bamboo straw in the container as well. So I have 2 kids and they absolutely love straws, so I can't get away with not using straws completely. But we have bamboo straws and metal straws that we carry around, and we make sure that they're available when we go out so that we're able to give the kids a straw when they ask for it. And then, of course, there's reusable bags. So plastic bags, by some people, are viewed as single-use items, but not by all. So, of course, you can reuse your plastic bags that you purchase at the shop. I would encourage you to reuse it as much as possible. And, of course, there are more longer-lasting types of reusable bags that you can purchase at the shops. And these are just a few examples of the ones that I use. Okay, I think one of the biggest single-use items that we have reduced in our household is disposable diapers. And I think a lot of people don't actually realize how much goes into the landfills. It is really quite, apologies for that, let me just go back. It is really quite shocking how much waste one child produces. So it's been estimated that from birth to potty training, a single child uses 4,140 disposable diapers, which amounts to 952 kilograms of disposable waste. And in 2012, based on population estimates, South Africa was estimated to produce more than 700,000 tons of absorbent waste per day. That is a huge amount of waste going into our landfills. And it's not just waste in terms of volume, it's also waste like the chemicals in the nappies, the fecal matter in the nappies that could spread disease. A lot of people don't dispose of the fecal matter before they throw their diapers away. So all of that is going into our landfills and our environment. So just by making a small change in your lifestyle and using cloth nappies, you can reduce waste going to landfill. And there's all sorts of other benefits that you get from using cloth nappies. And when I say cloth nappies, I'm not talking about the style that I grew up in and the style that I was cloth diapered in, which is the terry cloth towels, although they are still used quite widely actually. But there are modern cloth nappies which are really cute to look at. They're easy to snap on and off, just like a disposable. And there's no need for steri buckets or anything. Your washing machine does all the hard work, and they're very easy to use. So as I mentioned, you don't only reduce waste going to landfill by using cloth nappies, but you also are, as a byproduct, conserving water, because the production of disposable nappies actually uses more water than you would use washing cloth nappies at home. So they have that added benefit. And then, of course, they're saving money, which I think a lot of dads really like about cloth nappies, because if you were to buy disposables for your child from birth to potty training, you would probably spend about 15,500 Rand. And if you buy one set of cloth nappies for your child, you're spending about 3,500 Rand. And that actually includes the amount of washing powder and water, that expense that you spend on cleaning those nappies. So it's a massive cost saving. And even if you as a parent are not willing to completely use cloth nappies alone and you don't really want to convert completely, just by using one cloth nappy, you can actually replace 170 disposable diapers. So even making a small change in the type of nappy you use, you can make a difference. And there's an amazing group, I've put the link on the slide there, South African cloth nappy users. And they are a group of moms who have gone through this process of using cloth nappies, and they give advice, and they have all these great infographics and resources on their website if you want to find out more. But this was one single-use item in our house that we found that was really great when we decided to eliminate them. Some of the added benefits of cloth diapers. My cloth diaper set that I used for my son, I only started with him when he was about 3 months old, when we discovered he was allergic to disposable diapers, the chemicals in the disposable diapers. But the cloth nappies that I wore for him when he was a baby are now being used on my daughter. So I've made a saving on the cost that I'm spending on my second child's diapers as well. So and they're also extremely cute to look at compared to disposables. Okay, and then my tip number 3 is separating at source. So there are two different directions you can go with separating your waste for recycling. The first is that you can find your closest drop-off points and find out what they accept there, and then separate your waste according to that. And we've created this really handy resource on our website. It's a map of recycling and waste locations. And if you're in South Africa, you can go on there and you can find your nearest recycling or waste drop-off point. If you don't find your nearest recycling and waste drop-off point there, please do submit it for us so that we can make sure that the next person who goes looking is able to find it. So if you see any drop-off points missing, we are really excited to have people submit points for that map. But it's a really great resource, and please do go and have a look if you want to start separating your waste for recycling. The alternative to using drop-off points is, of course, hiring a company to come and collect from your home. And both of these methods have pros and cons. The first method, obviously, you might have to separate into more different types of waste. So a lot of the drop-off points will separate right down to the individual polymer codes. So you'll need to know which polymer codes each of the drop-off points accepts. Whereas the company that collects from your home, a lot of them only use a 2-bag system, and they tell you exactly what you need to put in the 2 bags when they collect. One of my most important tips regarding separating at source is please wash and rinse your waste when you do your dishes, because if you have your waste stored in your home waiting for collection or waiting for you to have enough to drop off, you really don't want it smelling. So what does this look like in my home? We have a 3-drawer system. I have a stack of plastic drawers that sits next to our sink. And we separate our waste into plastic, paper and cardboard, tin and glass. Our bottle caps and our bread tags are also kept separately. And weekly or as needed, so if the shelf starts getting full, I will go through these drawers and I will separate the waste for drop-off. So we use the drop-off method, mainly because our school takes quite a lot of our different types of waste. So I like to support the school and drop off some of that at the school. And then whatever the school doesn't take, I take to our nearest transfer station. And the bread tags and tops go to an amazing initiative that basically recycles these for wheelchairs. And the name of that organization is the Sweethearts Foundation. And I'm providing the link here for you so that if you are collecting bottle caps and tops at home, and bread tags at home, that you're able to support them, because it's a really great initiative that provides wheelchairs to people who can't afford it. Okay, tip number 4, using your organic waste. So as I mentioned, Dr. Ribbing spoke about his amazing composting system, and I wanted to talk about something else I do which doesn't require too much space. So this is ideal for somebody who lives in a flat or has a very small garden and you don't have the space to have a composting system where you can turn your compost. It's called the bokashi composting system, and basically it turns food waste into bokashi tea through a fermentation process. And all you need is a potato masher or something similar to squash your waste down, and then the bokashi bin system, which is a bin with a tap on the bottom so you can remove your tea, and of course the bokashi bran. And those items are freely available for purchase at different stores. It's also available online, so it's really easy to find and to start. The bokashi website has some amazing infographics to help you guys with information. But how it works basically is you place all your food waste in the bucket, and this can include anything from your kitchen, except for large bones, basically. So you can put cooked, uncooked meat. You can put, I've put an entire chicken carcass after we've had a roast chicken into the bokashi bin, and it decomposed. So that's absolutely amazing. Once you put your waste in, you just put a handful of the earth bokashi microbe mix, or some people call it bran, on top of the food waste. And then you shut the lid and you wait for it to ferment. It takes about 2 weeks for a layer to ferment. And then you're able to remove your tea. And you can use the tea directly in your garden. You can use it in your compost as an activator. I also feed it to my worm farm. Worms don't often like all the kitchen waste that you produce. So it's a nice alternative to be able to ferment the waste in the bokashi waste bin and then add it to my worm farm for extra nutrients. And then, of course, you can add it to your pot plants and other plants in your garden. You do have to dilute it. It is quite strong, so there's recommendations on the infographics online about how much you should dilute it by. And there's a link to the bokashi website where you can find more information if you need, or I'm happy to answer questions. Okay, and then my last tip number 5, is just be prepared. Have your reusable items ready for when you need them. I have this really amazing sort of boot organizer, and I have all my reusable bags, my reusable bottles, anything that I think I'm going to need ready for me in my car. You could alternatively have this all next to the front door so that when you walk out the door, you're ready to grab what you need. There are also really small foldable versions of some of these items that you can fit into your handbag or your backpack. I have a really great little foldable bag that folds into the size of a little tennis ball. So as long as you're prepared, it's going to be really, really easy to eliminate single-use items from your life and plan ahead. Just to recap, my 5 top tips are: shop smart, know what you're buying, eliminate single-use items as much as you can, separate at source, use your organic waste, don't throw it in the bin and send it to the landfill, and of course, be prepared. I'd also like to encourage you all to not feel overwhelmed. There are so many ways that you can make a difference, and if you just start with one small thing, it's going to make a difference to the waste in general. So please don't feel overwhelmed and just do one small thing to start with.
Yeah, sure, Stacey. This is amazing. I must say myself, like, yeah, I'm a little bit gobsmacked. There's a few things I selfishly want to ask about your presentation before we go into the comments. Lauren, I don't know how you feel about this presentation, but nappies have just like blown my mind. I don't know. You know, like, I think I'm converted. But like, I think just kids right now, you know.
It's also feminine products, Alexi, so you shouldn't be too judgmental of kids, hey? Feminine products are absorbed single-use items as well.
Oh, my soul, Stacey, like you have definitely opened up my eyes to, you know, how we live in an everyday life. Just like at the start of your presentation where you have to shop smart, you know, just realizing about and, you know, understanding about the different packaging, you know, that you encounter when you go to a store. But just to start off the questions, is there a specific like item, or was there something that you had to let go of and find an alternative to when it came to shopping because you saw that the packaging wasn't ideal?
There's no particular one item that I felt sentimental about letting go of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of items for kids that the kids absolutely love that come in individual packaging, and it is just so convenient. And so that's tough, you know, having to make the conscious decision to not go for the easiest thing in the shop. So things like little packets of biscuits that are so easy just to, it's already portioned for you almost. you have to sort of get around the idea that it's inconvenient to then get a bigger packet and put the portion in a bowl. So I suppose that was one of the changes that was quite tough. It's just to make a conscious decision to not use those quick and easy, items.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I want to bring Lauren into the conversation. Lauren, how did you feel about this presentation?
No, I was really inspired. Sure, Stacey. You really are incorporating a lot already at home. I was actually curious about the nappies as well, because I know you said that you don't use the bin. I mean, you don't use, like, if there's just the cloth nappy, then what comes in between the cloth and the bum, if that makes sense? I'm just trying to figure out how does it work.
I wish I had one with me to show you, but they're an all-encompassing pocket style. So there is like an outer waterproof layer, and there's an inner material layer that goes up against the skin, and then you put your absorbent material into the pocket. So there's like a material against the child's skin. For school, I do use bamboo liners, it's made out of bamboo fiber, just because it's easier for the school to dispose of the fecal matter that way. But at home, we just simply dunk it in the toilets.
That's amazing. That's really, really amazing. And I mean, it's so cool. I love the fact that you said that you were able to transition your kids from the first kid to the second kid, using the same nappy. And I'm assuming you just then replace the bamboo liner or whatever the filling is every time you change. I think this is a really innovative way to sort of get around the not using diapers.
Yeah, and there's so many options now available for parents. I think it's not a topic that's talked about a lot, and there really are just so many different types of modern cloth diapers. There's such an array of choice for parents, so it really is a fantastic option, and they are super cute, and they come in a multitude of different colors and cute prints, and so they definitely look much cuter in summer when you have your child running around in just a little nappy.
Yeah.
Your picture, Stacey, I must say, was super cute. It definitely does have like a little personal touch to your presentation, which I loved. But without further ado, I can talk like all day on my own, but I'd definitely like to dive into the questions, Stacey, that are coming through in our social media platforms. So the first one is coming through from Beverly van Sale, and she is asking, what do you think about ecobricks?
Whoa, that's a interesting question. I think it's great if you have a project that you are working towards with ecobricks. I think the problem comes in that ecobricks utilize a resource that is really easily recyclable. In South Africa, you're able to recycle a PET, so that's a polymer code 1 cool drink bottle from bottle to bottle. And so the clear PET polymer code 1 bottles are extremely valuable in the recycling chain as a resource. So I would encourage people, if you are making ecobricks and you have a specific project you're making them for, that you use the colored PET bottles, because they're less highly prized as a resource. But yeah, don't make ecobricks if you don't have a project they're going to, because they end up in the landfill as well, unfortunately. And so, yeah, I would really like to encourage people to only make ecobricks if you're making it for a specific project.
Yeah, I like that you're touching on, starting something that moves to a final result. I feel like it's so encouraging if you are looking at going into that ecobrick space in your life. Then it is important for it to feed into something or support a community or do something practical with it. It's such a great tip. So thank you for that. Stacey, there's a lot of comments coming through right now. Everyone loves your presentation. There's a lot of thanks and and people appreciate the very interesting tips that you gave. I want to move to the second question that is coming from Lemuela. She's saying, "Hi, Stacey. Where did you get the worms to start your worm farm?" That's a very good question.
There's a worm dealer in Port Elizabeth that you can buy them from. So I can definitely send contact details onto you. And I think a lot of people who actually sell the worm farm system also sell the worms, but so you can actually request the worms separately if you already have a worm farm system. So I can give you the name of my dealer.
I like that you call him a dealer.
All
right. Yeah, let's go into the next question that is coming from Joanne. She is asking, how do you rate packaging kinds from best to worst?
Sure, that's a tough question. I think that needs to be an individual decision based on what you can drop off at your local drop-off point, because although quite a lot of the different types of plastic are recyclable, you may not have access to a drop-off point that accepts them, or it may be too far away that you actually don't want to drive all the way there to drop off. So I think you need to decide on what you are what you're doing, whether you're going to use a drop-off point or whether you're going to use a company that collects from you. And then you need to see what types of packaging you are able to easily separate and get to a drop-off point, or what types of packaging the company accepts. And then obviously those types of packaging are your essentially best packaging choices in your shop, because it means that your waste that you produce is going to be less going to landfill. In terms of best kinds of packaging, obviously PET is top of the pops. It's an absolutely great resource. So, I mean, in terms of rating and recyclability, PET is the best type of packaging in my mind. And in South Africa, we have a great recycling system for PET.
Thanks for that, Stacey. I think it definitely makes us think about going and doing a little bit of investigation about what our community offers in terms of whether we do have recycling points, whether we don't, what we specifically have to do when it comes to sorting. I think it's very contextual to where you live and what you do. So just on that note, within the comments, Stacey has very kindly shared a lot of her tips and tricks and websites for us to have a look at. So please feel free to go onto the Sustainable Seas Trust website, where we do have a map that has some useful information about where to locate some drop-off points closest to you. So, and if there aren't any points, or if there's a point that we have perhaps missed from our side, please do let us know. Pop us an email, let us know if there's something interesting that you found or a place that we may have missed. We'd definitely love to engage with you and add that point onto our map to make things more accessible for you. Okay, so thanks, Joanne, for your question. That was really good. I'm going to step into a little bit of a controversial question, Stacey. I've got a question from Yvonne. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But it's an open-ended question, and she is asking, lobbying against excess plastic packaging, especially use of polystyrene trays, ? So how do you feel about that? Lobbying against excess plastic packaging?
Look, I completely agree with reducing packaging. I think that as humans, we need to reduce our wastage. So definitely excess plastic packaging we need to cut down on. I'm personally not a lobbying type of person. I prefer the diplomatic approach and talking to the actual producers of the item itself. So, and I think that the plastics industry itself has a large role to play in this, and we can't treat them like the enemy. They're not. We're all on the same team. We're all on Team Human, and we all have faults, and we have to try and make the best choices we can for a better world going forward. So I don't agree with really, targeting industry and being negative about it. I think we need to have a positive approach. We need to work together, and we need to collaborate on finding solutions to the issues rather than pointing out the negative aspects to it. Of course, a lot of what we do, we see a lot of the negative aspects, which is disheartening at times. But yeah, we're all on the same team, and we all need to move in the same direction because we're all living on this planet, and we need to make it better. Otherwise, we're not going to be living on this planet much longer.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Stacey. I love that you're speaking towards the positivity of us working together, and this not being a project or a goal on an isolated space. Like, we all have to work together, and we all have to come up with positive solutions, because discussing zero waste, and if we dive deeper into climate change, can be so overwhelming. And there's a lot of negative effects that have happened because of the plastic industry. But I think that it's so wise and such a good idea for us to just link up together, work together, and see how we can move forward collectively, so that we have, the earth to still live on in the long run for the future generations as well. And just on that note, I love how you spoke about finding the alternatives in your presentation when it came to straws, which is like such a controversial topic right now in the world. It's like, anti-straw, it's the latest hit, it's the latest trend. But when it comes to you as a mom, having little kids that want to use straws, you don't want to be put into an awkward situation where, you have a child who's like throwing a tantrum because they want to use a straw. And it's just amazing that you have gone for the alternative of not looking at a single-use straw, but having something useful and reusable with you all the time. Yeah, I think that's such an amazing point.
Yeah, and I think as they get older, they start becoming a little bit more aware of the implications of their choices. And about a year ago, my son, he was 4 at the time, we went to a restaurant, and I had forgotten the straws at home. And I said to him, "I'm sorry, my darling, you can't have a plastic straw. It's not good for the animals." And he said, "Oh no, mommy, they're going to die." And he said it at the top of his voice in the middle of a restaurant. And of course, everybody turned around and looked at him and thought, what is this woman teaching her child? But he clearly had seen the impact in I don't know, something we were watching, and he had absorbed it, and he understood that he shouldn't be using a plastic straw. So it was encouraging to see how quickly kids can actually catch on to that sort of change. And that's the power of youth.
Yeah, I love that you're touching on that. The youth are quite impressionable and quite impactful as well. So just stemming off what I do at SST, it's so important to encourage youth and to get them involved from such a young age, because it's cliche and it's said over and over again, but they are the future, and what we set as a foundation now will reflect in the many years to come. So I think that, yeah, for what you're doing at your home, Stacey, is definitely moving in the right direction for our future of South Africa. But just speaking to the general public, guys, if you have any more questions, please do feel free to pop them into the chat. I'm going to read through a few comments. Stacey, Shanae, she's saying that the 5 tips were really helpful, and also just thank you for sharing the Wheelchair Foundation link. She said that she's been collecting these items, so now she's got like a nice stock build-up that she can donate to the specific charity. Fleur, she said that it was a very interesting presentation and she is thanking you. Beverly and Joanne also thanking you for the presentation that you've given. So yeah, I think going back into your presentation just one more bit. I know, guys, I can talk a lot, but you did mention how you do your separation, not only at home, but you do a drop-off for your schools, for your kiddies' schools. And I just want to reflect on something that we have launched at SST, which is called Munch on the Move. Go onto our website, get a little bit more information about it, but it is basically this amazing initiative that was started with these two young kids called Jemima and Gabriel Riley here in Port Elizabeth. And it is this massive wire fish. It's a coelacanth, actually. And it is used as a recycling point for disadvantaged schools currently, to teach the schools and the learners about recycling in a more practical level. It's amazing. It has like these little sections where it teaches you how to separate, and it encourages young people to bring their recyclables to their school. So just on that note, if there are any teachers or any youth groups or anyone who would like to sponsor or have Munch on the Move at their school or at a school near them, please send us your information, pop us an email, and we'll definitely be in contact with you to bring this service to you. So that's one of the closing points I'd like to have. I'd like to bring Lauren back up so that we can have a little wrap-up conversation. How's it going, Lauren?
I was actually thinking, Stacey, I was thinking, I know there were some questions around the worm farm. So I was just wondering, in what instance would somebody like start a worm farm? Like, what is the, you know what I mean? Like, what is, not what is the point of it, but what are the benefits of having a worm farm?
It produces worm tea, so you can use it in your plants. I started it prior to having the bokashi system, so I think that if I didn't have the worm farm, I would probably have only used the bokashi system, just because it takes so much more different types of food waste. But I really love the worms, and I've been doing it for so long that I have kept them on as an additional processing method. And I suppose they do produce slightly different nutrients, perhaps. And I also like to put my bokashi tea into the worm farm as well, so that I get different nutrients mixed into both teas, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, they're great. You can put some of your food waste in. You can't put all of it in, not like the bokashi system. So if you wanted to have a worm farm and use both worm tea and bokashi tea, then that's an option as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, great. And I was just thinking, you know, like, I mean, you've really set up some fantastic systems at home already. I was just thinking on a practical basis, when, for example, like family comes over, how do you sort of educate them or encourage them to follow your system? Because I think it's often easy to have the system in place for the people living in there, but when you have sort of guests over, you know, or you're having a gathering or a braai, you know, how do you sort of at the end of the night sort of clean everything up, or do you use that sort of do you allow people to sort of adapt to your environment when they're in your space?
It really depends on the people, but in general, it's quite surprising once they see that there's, you know, a separation system at the sink, they automatically ask. And that's great. And I know that when we've had gatherings before, obviously with COVID, we haven't had one in a while, but for my son's birthday, we had a bin outside, and I had my 3-layer separation system outside, and I put signs on top of the bin and on top of the shelving units, and just to indicate exactly what needed to go into each of the different sections, and just to remind people that they mustn't just throw everything into the bin. And it seemed to work really well. Obviously, we were having the party outside, so then all of the waste that was in the system was actually dirty, so I had to rinse it and wash it later. But I actually didn't mind because it's my choice to do this, and there was no tap available outside for them to assist with that. So yeah, that's how I've dealt with it in big gatherings. And then of course when you have somebody over, just to ask them if they don't want to rinse it and put it in the drying rack themselves, that they just leave it next to the sink so that it can be sorted later.
No, thanks. I think that's a really great advice that you've given, just around that, because I think it's sometimes, it's even in those spaces when we have people over, that we can almost get them on board with sort of our projects at home. So I'm really inspired by today's talk. So huge thank you, Stacey, for sharing and allowing us to step into your home and to sort of explore your systems. I was just, I think from my side, Stacey, I was just curious, what's sort of the next step for the Webb family, in terms of zero waste journey. We all sort of adapting and adjusting every step of the way as we've sort of mastered one skill, one sort of element, then there's another one. So what would you say is your next step towards achieving zero waste within your household?
It's a great question. We do quite a lot already, but one of the biggest items that I have been unable to get rid of is the little squeezy fruit packets that you get with like pureed fruit that the kids love. For some reason, they don't like it when I puree fruit and put it into a reusable squeezy container. It apparently doesn't taste the same. So the next step is to try and eliminate those from our lives. And we also are looking at putting in solar power. So we already use a heat pump, water heating system, which already cuts down on the amount of electricity that we use for heating our water. It's about 3 times more efficient than a normal geyser. But we are wanting to also add some solar panels to our house so that we can reduce the amount of electricity we use.
That's amazing, Stacey. That's absolutely amazing. I think just touching off what Lauren said is that in each household, it's a journey. I mean, you start with something small and you learn about something new, and then you just continuously grow and build on that foundation so that you get your ultimate zero waste lifestyle home, whatever that picture may be to you. It's your own personal journey for you to go on. So thank you very much, Stacey, for highlighting on that. I am going to wrap up our masterclass for today. I just want to thank everyone for participating and feeding into the comments side and asking your questions. And if it was your second time, thank you for coming on board and joining us along on this journey. It is a journey, and it is a very interesting one, and one that we were also learning about personally as staff members at Sustainable Seas Trust. So we would love to thank you. I would also love to thank my co-host Lauren for joining us today once again. Lauren, it's always good to see you. I can't wait until we're back in the office together. I do miss you. And I would also like to thank our guest speaker, Stacey Webb. Thank you so much, Stacey, for, like Lauren said, allowing us to come into your home, and thank you for giving us such a personal and relatable presentation that we can all adapt to and take some tips off for our own personal lives. So without further ado, I wish all of you watching the best. Just a reflection on what Tony said previously is that change starts with a little bit of hope. A little bit of hope comes from you. So until our next masterclass and until our next journey and our next conversation about zero waste living, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we hope to see you again in the next masterclass. Bye, everyone.